Connection to self. How do you stay connected to yourself? What is a connection to yourself? What does that even feel like? How can I tune into what I need more often so that I can give myself what I need and give myself a life where I'll be more fulfilled? How can I stay tuned into myself when myself doesn't feel very good, when things are uncomfortable? These are all questions I'm going to explore here today on Growth with Sean. This is a video series where I just explain my inner world experiences as a guy, to try to be helpful to other people that might be exploring similar things and trying to get similar answers. So, it's a little humbling to admit this, being a 40-ish-year-old man, but as I drive here to surf today, I'm realizing, damn, like it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I've realized that my connection to myself is the most important thing in my life. Because without that, it's hard to tune into what I need. And if I don't know what I need and I don't give myself what I need, then I can't give others what they need. And emotionally, it's tough if you're not giving yourself what you need, because then your emotions are signaling that all the time and shooting out in all these different ways. And I see a lot of guys dealing with this in men's group, where we host personal growth conversations for men. If you want to talk about these kinds of things with other guys, go check out mensgroup.com. But we see this is a very common issue for guys, and it's something that I've wrestled with my whole life, is how do I stay connected to myself? How do I hang out with myself even when things feel uncomfortable? Naturally, like, why does this happen? Why do men and women alike both struggle with this? Why do I have issues with staying connected to myself, being tuned into my internal compass, or that inside voice? My truth, my higher self. These are all words that people use in different books and podcasts on the subject. Well, I think it's just a protective strategy. It's a survival strategy that kids use to get by in their households, or to get by around their social groups. My understanding is that babies are born having a connection to themselves, and it could be because you can see they already have these preferences in their own nature, their own little personality, and it's also the parent's job to then nurture that, to teach them that that's a good thing, and to teach them how to access it through their own examples of tuning into their needs and self-care. But if kids don't have that in the household, which many don't, especially certain generations, it seems like that's the case. What ends up happening is kids will create sort of protective mechanisms to stop them from getting hurt. And in the case of the family that I grew up in, where it was an alcoholic family system, and just a difficult environment where it was a lot of focus on the parents' emotional needs, and there was a lot of emotional chaos in the house. The best survival strategy for me was to not stand out, not express my needs. Instead, focus on everybody else's needs, because that will keep me safe. Because if I expressed my needs, I'd get punished for that, or things would get worse. So what did I do? I just ignored what was happening inside of me. I ignored the tension in my chest. I ignored the tension in my shoulders and neck, the feelings that would pop up. I'd push them down. Eventually, that became automatic, so that when I started feeling things, my throat would go nope and close up, and it wouldn't let them express. And that still happens to this day. That is still my default, because that's how I was trained when I was little. And that's what's imprinted in my amygdala, in my monkey brain, in my how I approach my life, and how that shows up for me now as a 40-ish-year-old man who's trying to be a high achiever and trying to create a good lifestyle for himself and his family is just being too busy, or just prioritizing social over hanging out with myself. And especially when I feel uncomfortable about something, if I feel stressed or anxious or tired or sad, then is where this disconnection from self really ramps up. And, that's, just looking at the waves. There's some waves out there. That, in those moments, that's when I just seek to get even busier, take massive action on stuff, and or head towards numbing activities, numbing behaviors, addictions, soothing mechanisms, booze, weed, porn, food is a big one for me, workaholisms, being overly social, just anything I can do to distract myself from myself, I will do. And I'll go to any length to do that. And that's why you see addicts, or maybe you've experienced this yourself, they will go to pretty extreme measures to get what they need. And I've seen that behavior in myself as well. It's because I feel uncomfortable. I was never taught how to manage that. And so I'm just going to focus on what's around me and try to change that in an unconscious effort to change this. But of course, it never works, right? We can't solve internal experiences, at least all of them, by tinkering externally. Look, if you have a terrible boss that's like polluting your days and nights, yeah, an external change is going to make a difference. If you are feeling crummy and you start exercising, and you're going to start feeling better, and then that will change your internal experience. So there is a relationship there between them. But there's also these other experiences like anxiety that's lingering around, or just exhaustion, or sorrow, or like feeling hopeless, or feeling left out of things, or feeling abandoned. That I've tried everything in the book: high achieving, fame, money, women. I've tried everything to try to make myself feel better and solve those uncomfortable feelings. And guess what? None of it worked, because I was still there, I recently heard in a great book called Let Your Life Speak by Parker J. Palmer. It's a book on finding your purpose. It talked about how depression is disconnection from yourself, right? Depression, anxiety, these lingering chronic emotional experiences, they're just your body being like, hey, over time, hey, and then it just ramps up, creates tension, creates feelings of agitation, being unsettled, being tired all the time. And I remember Jim Carrey in a video talking about how depression is just your body saying, we just need deep rest. And it's because you're tired of keeping the dance going, this act of everything's okay on the front, but then your soul on the inside is going, hey, something's not okay about this. And so I think I'm at the point in my life now where I've realized that, okay, this is a challenge for me because of how I was brought up, and just how my default seemed to be to just ignore myself, the internal world, my feelings, my thoughts, the tension that I hold in my body, And then number two, I think this is the most important thing I could be focusing on, because if I can't always be present with what I need and be present with myself in that way, then I'm not going to be able to give myself what I need. If I don't give myself what I need, then I'm not going to be able to show up well in life. And if I don't show up well in life, I'm not going to enjoy my life, which is a shame, and I will regret on my deathbed. I have had that thought a couple times. God, I'm just tired of spending my whole life being anxious and exhausted and sad and stressed out, but not really doing anything about it, just trying to avoid it. And as a result, just not feeling that present, or I'm enjoying my life that much. That's going to be a shame. And then, of course, if I'm feeling all that stuff and getting all these emotions popping up as a result, those are going to come shooting out at inopportune times, at loved ones, which a lot of guys experience. We do things we're not proud of, outbursts, tantrums. And so I'm not going to be able to be there for my loved ones, which is a shame too, because they've chosen me and they're there for me. And that's all I really want deep down. But there's all this chaos wrapped around that. And so, yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm like, wow, I think this connection to my eternal self is probably more important than anything else I could be focusing on, including work and finance. Even though there's stressors around that in my life, we have responsibilities and pressures now. Even above physical health. And I'd say that the physical health ties closely to the inner world stuff. If you exercise chemically, you're just gonna have an easier time with this stuff. But ultimately, if there's these nagging, lingering things, that you might not even be able to articulate at this point, but you know they're there because of the tension in your body or the emotions that keep popping up or the disproportionate reactions you're having when you're getting triggered, then, you know, it's something that probably needs to be addressed. I'm just tired of like having this stuff go on, you know? So I started exploring how I can be more connected to myself. And I've always noticed that I do really well with meditation, and I know it's not for everybody. And I'm not talking about a woo-woo, kooky type of meditation. I'm talking about just blocking out 20 minutes every day to breathe and be present with what my body's doing. And that's been great for me. But because I'm so externally focused, especially when I'm triggered, I find myself getting pulled away from it fairly often. Like, I should be doing this, should be doing that, I should go pay these bills, I should do that. Just try to deal with this anxiety when really I just need to go breathe and like hang out with it and figure out what it's trying to tell me, you know? Because it's always trying to tell me something. So meditation's been great. Slowing down and leaving quiet time, what I call bored time, has been great. Because that is, as Arthur Brooks, the sociologist, and I think he's a psychologist, talks about, you know, those bored times when you're standing at the bank in line for like 5 minutes. We used to not pull out our phone, and there's a mechanism in the back of our brain that starts to process on the bigger things in our life that you don't get to access if you're constantly distracting for yourself. So I've made up a policy that on like drives like this to the surf, or when I do long drives, or when I'm bumbling around town, or when I'm walking my dog, to not have podcasts in, to not have music in, and to just sit here kind of bored and let things wheel away. Because that is a form of me just being connected to myself. And the other tool that's been really useful for me is plant medicines. So, mushrooms, psilocybin, DMT, MDMA. I'm not somebody who did drugs, and I know this is controversial. I'm not somebody who did drugs at all in my life. I was an athlete. My parents scared me away from them. Even when I was DJing, when I was younger, I didn't do any drugs. I didn't even smoke weed. Nothing. And in my early 30s, though, I started to notice that friends of mine were having great success in their growth. Their anxiety went way down, their relationships got better, their marriage got better after they were doing therapeutic plant medicine experiences focused on these issues. So I was like, okay, I'll try those. And those have been tremendous for bringing me back to myself and helping me get reconnected, especially MDMA. And this is part of the reason why I'm recording this video right now, because I did an MDMA journey maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And ever since then, I've just felt really connected with myself. Until the end of this week, where it was like the perfect storm of like family stressors and relationship stress and some financial and work stress. And then I noticed myself feeling really uncomfortable and then disconnecting and going into autopilot, where I'm like seeking out those, distractions from myself again, where I'm getting busy and I'm trying to organize all this stuff that I don't need to be doing, and I'm doing tasks that don't really need to be done right now, and most importantly, I've gone from like enjoying time with myself, cooking food, or these quiet moments. Now all of a sudden I'm sticking in podcasts, or I'm playing energetic music, or I'm really loud, or I'm not cooking, I'm looking for junk food and pre-made meals and eating out in restaurants and watching a ton of Netflix just to kind of like check out from myself. And I'm like, whoa, that's such a difference from the last month or so, where I've just felt, for the first time in my life, really just calmly, lovingly connected to myself. And it's really cool because it's the first time I've ever been able to observe myself really going from connected and present and like just fulfilled and happy, you know, to like watching myself gradually do this and just feel worse and worse and worse and have the anxiety ramp up and the feelings of lowness, you know, light depression or whatever ramp up. And I'm like, oh, interesting, there it is. So what happened there? Well, there were enough triggering things or difficult things for me and my unique setup that made me go, this is all too uncomfortable. I don't want to sit with this like I have been. I don't want to just make a quiet meal in the kitchen for a couple hours. I don't want to just sit alone and play music when I have a free night. I just need to like distract myself, you know? I just need to check the fuck out from being me. I was like, interesting. And then when over the last couple of days, I got back into the meditation. I've been introducing more quiet time. I've been having long, slow surfs, which is like, you're at the back of the waves a lot and you're sitting there in rhythm with the ocean. And a lot of uncomfortable feelings have come up about those family, work, financial, relationship situations that popped up. A lot of fears have popped up of, oh, damn, does this mean people are going to leave me? Oh, damn, does this mean, you know, kind of irrational fears that have been lingering behind the scenes based on stuff that happened in the past. But nonetheless, my body's still trying to send me a message. Hey, I need reassurance right now. I need your presence like a parent. I need a parent to put their arm around me right now and go, hey, I hear you and it's going to be okay. And I'm doing the opposite. Instead, I'm pushing that kid away. That sweet little boy, I'm pushing him away, which is so sad. But it's the default, you know, because I was never shown how to sit with these uncomfortable things. Now, the good news is that I noticed that as soon as I step back into meditating and being present with myself in these different ways, simple or more complex, is that it's easier now because I've been doing it for a month. And so it is like a muscle. That's the good news. You know, your connection to yourself, the connection to your inner compass, that quiet yes or no, that inner voice that knows what you need, that a lot of people call the inner compass or true self or your higher self. Like that is like a muscle. That voice never completely goes away. Maybe it does, I don't know, but I've never seen it. But it just gets really quiet. And so when you're encountering things in the world as I was, especially as a people pleaser, especially as somebody who's anxious, especially as somebody who's conflict avoidant, I would like, you know, shy away from that stuff and just try to tune in with myself and figure out what I need in the moment. Somebody asked me to do something. A situation popped up that I wasn't okay with. I would try to like check in with myself, but there was nothing in there. It was so quiet. And so for you, it might start very quiet. It might start very minimally, where it's hard to actually feel what you want, and you might actually feel fairly frustrated with that. And just know that if you just keep on with it, I've seen in myself, and I've seen hundreds of guys in men's group express the same thing, that if they just start trying to connect them, tune into their body in that way, by just hanging out with themselves in the in-between board times, and especially when things are difficult internally, when they're feeling uncomfortable things, when they're having an experience of discomfort, then over time, that muscle gets stronger, that voice gets louder, to the point where now I actually look forward to situations where I'm caught off guard, because I get to do this internal probe where I check in and go, ooh, I'm feeling this like ramp up of anxiety there. What's that about? You know, somebody asked me to go for a beer. Why all of a sudden do I feel anxious? And then I can go, let me get back to you on that so I can sort it out. Or I can go, I don't know, no, or whatever's needed. You know, it's a faster cycle loop. And as a result of that, I find boundaries easier, and that makes my relationships better. And people are more clear about what I need, and so they know how to give me what I need. And so life gets easier, life gets smoother if you start exercising that muscle. So I know it can feel like a bit of a foreign thing, like, this connection to self, what? So like, here's what it actually feels like to me, like boots on the ground, nuts and bolts. Here's my experience of it. Right now, as I'm driving to the waves and kind of having this conversation with you, if I breathe, there's like I feel a dragginess right now. Like I want to be like this. That's because I haven't been sleeping enough and I haven't been feeding myself well enough. So it just shows up as this like kind of pull, like this, like I have an anchor around my neck or something, you know? So that's one thing. It's hard doing this while, it's more challenging doing this while driving, obviously. But if I tune into what's happening in my body, if I just breathe into, if I just take a couple breaths and I go, what sensations are there? There's tension right here in my chest, near my solar plexus, right in the middle of my chest. And if I breathe into that, it's like, oh, there's some feeling behind it, some upset, maybe some sadness, maybe some anger. And in this case, I already think I know what it is. Again, it's the family stuff that popped up this week. It's the relational stuff that happened last weekend. It's a bit of this financial stress. One or two of those things, maybe all of them, or maybe it's just one, hasn't been resolved inside. And so my body's still like, hey, my mind is still like, hey, we don't feel very good about this. That's what it's saying. We don't feel very good about this. That's what anxiety, depression, all these things are. Unless you have the real high level than like clinical depression or anxiety, which is a different thing, where you might have some chemical imbalances, some hormonal imbalances, and that happens too. But if it's just like a daily manageable experience, then that's my experience. That's all my body's trying to tell me. And so for me, I thought I had to come at this from like a spiritual woo-woo, like connect to some higher God, like an upwards escalation into the light, which is like self, but it's not. I found that access to myself actually is found in those lower moments. It's found in the uncomfortable moments. It's found in the discomfort, the fatigue, the sadness, the anxiety, the dissatisfaction with external events or situations. Might be your job, might be a relationship, might be a fight you just had. In those moments when those feelings are up here, you know, you're really present to them, like that. That's when, if I step away from what I'm doing and I just make time to hang out with those things, even for a few minutes before I go back about my day, before I get back to external focus, you know, that's a win. It'll help build that muscle, and I'll very quickly get clarity on what I actually need. Typically, if I start building that muscle. Again, in the beginning, it can still feel like a confusing mess, but in short order, you will start to get clarity. Like, you'll just get these impulses or thoughts or feelings like, oh, you just got to do this, or hey, maybe it's this. It'll feel intuitive. Your intuition will be speaking to you, you know? And there's one other really important thing I'd like to share on this, and that is that I've seen experts, wise people from all different walks of life and cultures and backgrounds, all kind of directing me and other people to this same idea of like, when you're triggered, instead of doing the thing you usually do to deal with that uncomfortable feeling, step away from it, be with yourself for a minute, hang out with your body and its sensations, just breathe, do nothing, just pay attention to that inner world. And what will happen is you will get the answers you're looking for. That practice is the healing move more than anything else, you know? And I've heard a great, I had a doctor that saved my life from chronic illness. He said that. I worked with a generational trauma specialist that he told me to work with. He said that. You look to the Eastern philosophies, you know, yogic or the yogic world, they all talk about this presence with yourself. And I'm at the point where I'm like, oh damn, like I could listen to 1,000 podcasts, or I could do 100 affirmations, or I could do all these exercises and things that people use and are useful and helpful in some ways to for personal growth, for self-improvement. But if you have these nagging emotional things underneath that you're not being present with, then it doesn't matter, because that's the foundation of the house. If that is shaky, it doesn't matter how nice the walls are or how nice the finishings are, or the lights, fixtures, or whatever, you gotta address the foundation. And for the majority of people, I believe, and I've noticed, that is this internal world. And so the healing move is, when you are triggered, when I'm triggered, I will step away from whatever I'm doing, if I can. And I'd say there's 70% of the times I can, 30% of the times I can't. Even if I'm at a restaurant with friends, at a dinner with friends, I will step away if I feel some emotions pop up. And I will go into the bathroom or somewhere else. I'll sit there with my clothes on, and I will just put my hands on my chest and my stomach, and I will just breathe. And I'm not meditating necessarily. I'm not making any noises. I'm not praying. I'm just hanging out with this internal world, because I'm trying to build a relationship with it. I'm trying to be there for whatever part of me is yelling at me to pay attention and causing this discomfort, this anxiety, this tension, this stress, whatever, sadness. Because that is my number one priority right now, is learning to be there for myself, because nobody else was going to be. So I've done it at restaurants, I've done it in movie theaters, I've done it, at hockey games. I do it with my partner. I will step away and just hang out with myself. And it could be as simple as, damn, there's a lot of tension in my chest, and if I just hang out and breathe with that, if I just hang out with it for a little while, put my arm around it and go, hey, you can be there, it's okay, I'm here for you, I don't know what you need, and start to compassionately support it, be supportive of it, it will subside enough where I can go back to my experience and have a good time. That's a win. That's building the muscle. And now when I go do that, what happens is I will go and do that, and after tuning into that internal experience, hanging out with myself, it'll say pretty direct, I'll get a pretty clear message right away. I'd say maybe 80-90% of the time now, hey, this thing isn't okay. Hey, this thing you're doing right now, I don't want to be doing that. Hey, this person said this and that wasn't fair. This thing right in front of you it's reminding you of this thing that happened in the past that was very similar, that was very painful for you, And often what happens is these emotional triggers we feel in the moment, they're actually disproportionately large emotional responses for what's actually in front of us. But we're feeling so intensely because whatever is in front of us is picking at a wound that we have from an old experience that wasn't resolved, that we still feel painful about. And that is across all of humans, because we find ourselves in situations all the time where, we find ourselves in tough situations and we can't make time to step away sometimes and, process our feelings. If you're in a war, if you're in a car crash, if you get sick, if you're running from a tiger in human history, your whole system's dumping energy in your body to get away from that tiger. You're not there to sitting there going, I feel stressed or anxious in the moment. But the system's designed for you our nervous system, the hormones, the way it dumps like that to get us away from that tiger, the fight or flight we feel in stressful moments. It's designed to expend that energy, so to run away from that tiger, to fight our way out of something. And if we don't get to do that, and all that energy gets imprinted in our nervous systems, in our amygdalas, in our brains, and then when we run into similar situations that remind us of that stuff, all that programming gets fired up. And that's why we can have these larger than reasonable responses to situations, and so that really is the healing move. If you can start when you're triggered, stepping away from whatever you're feeling, or stepping away from the situation that's causing you to feel, that not only will build the muscle, in short order you'll start getting the answers you need. And I first thought when I heard this that like, oh wow, I'm gonna be a weirdo doing that, but nobody notices because I just step out to the bathroom with my partner Katie. I'll just say, hey, I'm feeling all right now. I'm gonna go in the other room and breathe into that. She's like, oh good. She likes that because she's seen that I've calmed down over time. That I become less reactive, less explosive, less of an immature little boy in those moments when I'm triggered, you know? And, you know, when I first waded into this stuff too, I was like, is this like real stuff? Is this like normal what I'm going through? Am I just crazy? And no, there's a whole field of study under psychology that's called parts work. And it's about integrating these different parts of ourselves. The 5-year-old boy, the 12-year-old boy, the 15-year-old young adult, the 20-year-old who's going to set out in the world. There were parts of me that had difficult experiences from the past that weren't resolved. And those fears that came out of those painful situations, that tension, that anxiety, that was still hanging around today. And if I'm being honest, kind of guiding, dictating like how I was approaching my life and how I felt about my life moment to moment. And that was such a shame because it made things so much more difficult than it had to be. So if you made it this far, I encourage you to start the journey of connecting with yourself. I explained some of the tools that work for me. Somatic meditation, which is a specific kind of meditation that's focused on what's my body feeling right now. Therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, talking about it with other guys in men's groups and friends. Just being like, hey, I felt this. Have you ever felt that? And some people would be like, yeah or no, and they'd explain their experience, and that would give me some context as to what I'm experiencing, because it's hard to put this stuff into words. It was like brushing this stuff off other people. Iron sharpens iron, you know, to sharpen my sword, so I can shine a light in those dark corners that are, you know, affecting my experience. And of course, plant medicines have been extremely helpful for me, and I think in the next 10, 15 years, we'll really see these things come back. There's a lot of clinical research on them that's showing a lot of success with veterans, with people with PTSD, with drug addicts, heroin addicts, which are all experiences that lead to disconnection, that these things can help people reconnect with themselves in loving ways and sort of close some of those loops from the past, heal some of those wounds. At least that's the experience I've found in my own life. But that being said, there's so many other tools and access points, breath work, being out in nature. But the key thing is that you're tuning in this internal world. You're having the courage, which is really what it is, the courage to sit with yourself when you're feeling so uncomfortable, like you're gonna burst, like you're gonna explode. Louis C.K. and Theo Von just did a podcast talking about their porn addiction, their sex addiction, where they talked about how when they started sitting with themselves instead of doing the impulsive thing that they did to make themselves feel better, which in their case was porn and stuff, and sexual addiction and unhealthy sexual behaviors that had consequences on other people. They said when they started sitting with that energy that was behind that, it was like electricity in their nervous system. It was like putting their finger in an electrical socket. And that's what I found as well. I found the exact same thing. It is so uncomfortable sitting with myself sometimes. But if I can do that, even just for a few minutes, and that's what all these experts are saying to me too, this generational trauma therapist, my doctor, if you can do that for 30 seconds or a minute, that's a win, because you're breaking the pattern of your immediate response. You're bringing awareness to your internal world. And if you can do that, all of a sudden, those feelings won't be so intense inside, and over time you can heal that, and you can clear that, you can process through that. And then those intense things you're feeling will be gone. They don't have to be there. They don't have to be there. I can say that in my first-hand experience. I had so much electricity, dirty static in my nervous system. I had so many ruminating thoughts in my mind, worrying about people or stuff I did not good enough, or things I said, or what if this happens, fears. Like, you might think you're that way permanently, but you're not. I can see in myself, and my partner Katie will tell you, I've settled. I'm more grounded. I'm less reactive. I'm more calm. I'm way less anxious. I'm more present in the house. I'm taking care of myself better. I'm having a better time with my life. I'm healthier. As a result, money's doing better. My relationships are doing better. You know, my health is doing better. So I encourage you, start that path. Get on the journey of making a connection to yourself. If you have any questions about this, add them in the comments below, or if this resonated or struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just some encouraging words. And if you want to talk about this stuff more, we got a great community of guys over at mensgroup.com talking about this stuff all the time. Message forums, chats, video meetings. I found that really useful to help learn about myself and deepen that connection to myself. So thanks for watching Growth and Healing with Sean. I hope this was useful for you. Send it to somebody who you feel like could use it. And yeah, I hope you can strengthen that connection to yourself. I promise you, you will not regret it. You will be grateful that you did.